Welcome to another Twin Can. I'm Jan.
I'm Eric.
Behind us is a 2019 Mercedes Benz A220 4Matic. It's Mercedes Benz entry-level sedan, something to bring people into the brand, and it starts off at a fairly reasonable price. I guess
it starts off at a reasonable
starts
price.
off there. Emphasize that.
The base price is, I think it's $34,500.
But it quickly climbs to the fully optioned example we have behind us, which is a little over $49,000, close to 50 grand.
Yeah, this one has an AMG package, driver assistance package, technology packages, all of which push it up. Actually, the options list is quite long on this, and even though it's an entry-level car for Mercedes, it includes things like heated front seats. Shouldn't heated
on the
front
options list?
Yeah, shouldn't heated front seats be, standard on a Mercedes?
You would think so. Let's talk a little bit about the format of the car. It's powered by a 2-liter inline turbo 4-cylinder engine, making 188 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque, which, if you're scratching your head and saying, a Mercedes with less than 200 horsepower, but a little over 200 pound-feet of torque for 50 grand, you're not alone. We're scratching our heads too.
Yeah, it mates to a 7-speed automatic gearbox, which does its job reasonably well. But those power figures combined with a turbo kind of show up in traffic in this car, don't they?
And if you want a number to pin to the performance of this car that sort of describes it, I'm not really sure anybody even cares about these numbers anymore except for exotic cars, but 0 to 60 takes about 6.3 to 6.5 seconds realistically. I think there are a few testers who have achieved slightly, maybe a tenth or two quicker times, but in reality, that's what it is, and the driving characteristic is that you wait for boost.
Yeah, I would say on the street, plan on more like 7 seconds in the real world. However, as I was saying, those power figures combined with the car's weight, what's the curb weight?
It is 3,395 pounds.
So actually fairly light, not that bad.
For a modern car,
right.
For a sedan, it's not too bad.
They give you driving performance on the street where you feel the lack of torque down low. It's noticeable in this car. Sure, you can overcome that by, pressing on the gas pedal a little bit more, but it is something you notice also. I think we noticed that the throttle tip-in is very conservative.
Yeah, that can be changed slightly by going from comfort to sport or individual mode. Those are the 3 main modes offered in the car. There's also an eco mode. That must be, I don't think we even tried that. That must be even more challenging, but yes, it's kind of a lazy tip-in. That said, some of the other dynamic feelings that you get back from the car aren't bad. The steering in particular is one of the best I've felt in recent years. The rack is not overly communicative, but it does tell you something, and the weight of it is pretty good.
It is. They dialed that in pretty well, actually.
And one of the other strengths of the car, from a dynamic perspective, is the chassis. It's quite good.
As are, because of the AMG package on this particular car, the brakes. The braking is, for a smaller sedan, very good.
So in terms of handling, the car does quite well. In fact, it's really a chassis in search of a more powerful engine.
In fact, I think you could say that the base car here, with a couple of exceptions, mostly interior volume things, is a good foundation. However, when you get into some of the options and some of the technology that's on it, it starts to run into trouble, I think.
As Eric often says, many of the digital gauges that you find for the instrument cluster, to me they don't really seem like luxury. They seem like a cheap alternative.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are crazy about this sort of cell phone user interface presentation that we're starting to find increasingly in modern cars, but again, to me, kind of seems like a cheap way out, honestly.
Yeah, it's a lot more screens, and I really don't need to be stared at by screens all the time. More on that in a moment. The seats are comfortable. The front seats are a sort of suede-ish material. We'll put that up here, exactly what that is. They're comfortable. The rear seats, while the cabin isn't huge, they are comfortable enough for someone who is 5'10" or even up to 6 feet, I think. The drawback, however, is in the trunk right here. There is less than 9 cubic feet of space in that trunk, so you can't really fit a lot in. A competitor like an Audi A3 will allow you to put more back there than this Mercedes A220.
And it combines, actually, if you want to look at the rear of the car for a second, we'll show you that, with a rear design that is kind of bulbous, but has its biggest drawback insofar as rear visibility is just very limited. Now, I know Mercedes will tell you we have wonderful backup cameras to use for reference, but to me that does not make up for that failing.
It's a point we make frequently about most cars these days. Cocooning the driver is one thing, but if you can't see out of it, I think that really negates the safety from the cocoon.
Yeah, the rearward visibility just is very poor in this car, and it really shouldn't be that way for a small sedan.
The overall styling is either for you or not for you. I'm not really terrifically crazy about it, although this probably is one of the best iterations with the AMG options on it.
Yeah, the black wheels, the color here is polar white. Some of the trim, the side skirts, and the badges come with the AMG package, which is probably one of the options choices that I would go with on this car, though I would forego many others.
Yeah, these 19-inch wheels are part of that package, and the braking package comes inside that AMG option as well.
Of course, this being a Mercedes, there is a long tradition of advanced technology adoption by Mercedes that goes back to its sedans of the late 60s, early 70s, and particularly up into the 80s, where they started bringing in new tech. And, you know, I applaud Mercedes for that, and I understand that way of thinking, but there's so much on this car, I think you'll agree, that is extraneous and actually takes away from the experience.
Yeah, it's certainly not exclusive to Mercedes-Benz. There are others who are doing this as well. And sad to say, it's all preparing for a future in which a driver does less and less to the point where they're not driving.
Yeah, not a future that I think will happen as soon as is being hyped, and not one I look forward to in any case.
No.
Let's talk about some of that tech. I've made some notes here on some things that stood out to me. The 220 here with its options, various options packages, I won't get into all of them, has things like inductive charging. You can put your phone on the center console and it will charge wirelessly. And there's also, again, with this advanced technology idea, features like Mercedes Benz user experience augmented reality for navigation. So they are actually inputting data that's just not there on a conventional map that you would use for navigation. Works okay, although I don't think we've explored the nav system that extensively.
Now, again, I think it's part of the upsell of vehicles today that isn't really about the car. It's about the technology that you find in other devices.
A couple of other notes here on the driver assistance systems. They are manifold and many. You have things like active braking assist with a cross traffic function. So I assume, and we can check this, that there is a radar up front reading cross traffic activity in front of the car, and it will stop the car if it detects that. That's okay, but I wonder what else is going on there.
Yeah, when you come to a stop at any stoplight, that 10.25-inch center screen, which is optional, part of the premium package, you get a 7-inch screen if you don't opt for that package, but that lights up with a picture of what's right in front of you. So when you come to a stop at a stoplight, there's a video, basically, or a video presentation of what's right in front of you.
It's a live feed, but you wonder if that's being recorded.
Yes, well, there are a lot of functions on this and other brand new cars that are very, very invasive. There have been some articles about this recently. I urge you to read them. Your personal data and your personal security is being put at risk by vehicles like this.
Yeah, hooking your cell phone to your car through Bluetooth, that is maybe not a decision you should make.
Yes, just a small warning from TrinCam.
That's a public service announcement. A couple of other things. There is more braking here. distance following. I think they call it Distronic. There's an emergency stop adaptation function. I think you felt it at one point
Yes,
too.
and again, I find these things invasive. I haven't really figured how to turn them off in the car. I think that's possible, but I would urge you to turn them off because they can intervene at times when you don't want them to. And again, it's a question of the car thinking it knows better than you. If you're an attentive, competent driver, you still know better than the car.
A couple of other options notes. Here is another one that's slightly curious for me. There's a heads-up display with the car. It's okay. It also has speed limit awareness, and it will, show you the speed limit in the heads-up display, and it'll start flashing if you go over the speed limit, which I think we both find annoying, and I would imagine you would too. That's a $990 feature, almost $1,000 for a heads-up display on a car that starts at $34,500. That's kind of an indication of where Mercedes has gone with its option strategy here.
Well, to sum up, I think actually that the A220 is a decent car fundamentally. I think performance-wise, it could use a more powerful engine. The chassis is good. The braking is good.
Handling's pretty good.
The handling is good. If you opt for the AMG
Absolutely.
package, it aids all of that. I would leave all of what I'll call the gingerbread off of it. Not needed. Get a Mercedes Benz in the mid $30,000 range, and you'll have a pretty good car.
Yeah, you could lop off easily from what we rattled off with respect to the options. You could lop 9-10 grand off of that easily. Just get the AMG package, and you'll also have a lighter car that will maybe be more reliable.
And one word, the fuel mileage is pretty good. I believe it's 28 to 29 combined. Not bad for a modern sedan.
All in all, as we've said, a good foundation from which to work. And if you make some reasonable edits to your options buying, you're going to have a car that's going to be pretty satisfying and reliable, and fairly cost-effective as well.
That's the A220, and that's all for this Twin Cam. I'm Jan.
I'm Eric. Till next time.